What's up, medieval maniacs? Before we dive into this absolute train wreck of a story, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me what you would do if you woke up tomorrow in 1347 with nothing but a wooden bowl and a prayer. Because trust me, minutes of this nightmare, you're gonna need all the prayers you can get. Now listen up, because I'm about to blow your mind harder than the Black Death blew through Europe. You think choosing a career today is rough? Student loans? Job interviews? Corporate politics? Sweet summer child. Imagine you're 12 years old. It's medieval England, 1347. Your life expectancy is roughly the same as a McDonald's ice cream machine, frequently broken and nobody knows how to fix it. You're a career counselor, some drunk monk who can barely read Latin. Your LinkedIn, a piece of bark with your name scratched into it. And your career options? Oh, they're real limited. Blacksmith, translation, human furnace with anger management issues. You spend your days getting roasted alive while making weapons for people who'll probably use them on you. Monk, basically an unpaid intern for God. You copy books all day, take a vow of poverty, like you had a choice, and your boss lives in a castle while you sleep on straw. Night sounds cool until you realize you're essentially a walking target practice dummy wrapped in metal. It's like being a crash test dummy, except the crashes are intentional and involve sharp objects. Plague Doctor, the medieval equivalent of a hazmat suit cosplayer. You poke dead bodies with a stick while wearing a bird mask. It's like being a goth furry, but with more corpses. Scribe, you're basically a human photocopier, except slower and you complain more. Executioner, the ultimate dead-end job. Literally. But here's the kicker, the twist that's gonna make your brain do backflips. Every single medieval career is actually crime. Not kidding. You think you're choosing honest work? Nah, buddy. You're picking which flavor of organized crime you want to join. The blacksmith? He's running an underground weapons trafficking ring and moonlighting as a grave robber. Those custom horseshoes he's making? They're skeleton keys for breaking into crypts. The monk? That holy man is the biggest forger this side of the Vatican. He's cranking out fake relics faster than a Chinese factory makes knockoff iPhones. Got a splinter from the true cross? That's actually from Brother Francis's outhouse. The scribe? Dude's rewriting wills like he's editing Wikipedia. Oh, you wanted to leave your fortune to charity? Actually, according to this document, I totally didn't just forge. You're leaving everything to me. The innkeeper? Money laundering operation with a side of actual laundry. Plus those mystery meat stews? Let's just say some guests check out, but their luggage doesn't. The knight? He's basically a medieval mob enforcer with better PR. Protection racket with a code of chivalry twist. And the executioner? Well, let's just say not everyone on that block was actually guilty. But they all had something in common. They owed someone money. See, in medieval times, there was no HR department, no background checks, no company values. There was just one rule: don't get caught. And if you do get caught, make sure you're connected to someone who can make it go away. This is the story of how I learned that medieval career day wasn't about finding your passion. It was about choosing which criminal enterprise best suited your particular brand of moral flexibility. And me? Well, I chose all of them, which is why I'm standing here in chains, about to tell you the most epic tale of career fraud, medieval identity theft, and organized crime that would make Tony Soprano weep with pride. This isn't just a story about choosing a career. It's about how every choice you make is really just choosing which rules you're willing to break. It's about power, corruption, survival, and why the phrase honest work was basically an oxymoron in the Middle Ages. So buckle up, hit that notification bell, and get ready for the wildest ride through medieval career hell you've ever experienced. Because we're about to explore every single respectable profession in medieval society, and I'm going to show you exactly how each one was just organized crime with better marketing. Welcome to Medieval Career Day, where every job application is a confession, every promotion is a crime, and the only retirement plan is the gallows. Let's start with Hour 2, where I'll tell you about my first job interview, and why I should have known something was up when the interviewer kept fingering his dagger. So there I was, age 12, standing outside Grimwald, the blacksmith's shop. The guy was basically medieval Hank Hill, obsessed with his craft, built like a beer keg, and had opinions about everything. Boy, you want to learn the trade? First lesson: fire don't care about your feelings. Second lesson: neither do I. Third lesson: ask too many questions and you might accidentally fall into the forge. Red flag number 1, right? But hey, I needed a job and blacksmithing seemed legit. You make horseshoes, you fix plows, you help the community. Honest work for honest pay. Oh, sweet naive 12-year-old me. If only I'd known that honest work in medieval times was like finding a unicorn. Technically possible, but you'd have better luck spotting Bigfoot riding a dragon. First day on the job, Grimwald's showing me around. Normal stuff. The forge, the anvil, the hammers, the pile of human skulls in the corner. Wait, what? Oh, those. Grimwald says, casual as discussing the weather. Those are for measurements. Gotta make sure the helmets fit right, you know? Can't have knights complaining that their headgear's too tight. Bad for business. Makes sense, right? Except, why were some of them still attached to spines? Bulk discount, he explained. Gravedigger gives me a deal if I take the whole skeleton. Waste not, want not. And that's how I learned that medieval blacksmiths weren't just making horseshoes. They were running full-service body disposal operations. See, here's what they don't teach you in medieval history class. Blacksmiths had the perfect crime setup. You've got a forge that burns at over 2,000 degrees, hot enough to melt steel, hot enough to destroy evidence. You've got tools for cutting, hammering, shaping, and you've got a legitimate reason for all the screaming, "Oh, that's just me working late on a difficult piece." Grimwald wasn't just making weapons for the local lord. He was manufacturing custom torture devices for the sheriff, creating skeleton keys for the local burglars, and operating what was essentially a medieval chop shop for stolen goods. That horseshoe he's hammering? Actually a lockpick. Those decorative iron roses, for the ladies? Hidden blades. And that beautiful wrought iron gate for the church? It had secret compartments for smuggling contraband. But wait, it gets better. Remember those skulls? Grimwald had a side hustle measuring heads for custom executioner equipment. You know how they say measure twice, cut once? Well, Grimwald took that literally. "See, boy," he told me while filing down what was definitely not a farming tool. Execution is an art form. You can't just use any old axe. Got to be balanced just right, weighted for the swing, sharp enough to cut clean. Nobody wants a messy execution. Bad for morale. And the kicker? He was charging both sides. The executioner paid him for the axe. The condemned paid him for adjustments that might make the blade slightly duller. Rich folks could literally buy themselves a quicker death. Medieval subscription service, right there. Grimwald's premium death experience, for when you want your execution to be memorable for all the right reasons. But here's where it gets really twisted. Grimwald didn't just work with the law, he worked around it. Those skeleton keys he was making, he'd sell them to burglars, then sell better locks to their victims. He'd make weapons for both sides of every conflict. He was like a medieval arms dealer, except instead of countries, he was supplying feuding neighbors. The guy had a customer loyalty program. Steal enough stuff using his lock picks, and he'd throw in a free dagger. Get killed by someone using his weapons, and he'd give your family a discount on the coffin nails. And the most insane part? Everyone knew. The sheriff knew. The priest knew. The Lord knew. But Grimwald had something on all of them. The sheriff's torture devices? All custom Grimwald originals. The priest's holy reliquaries? Grimwald made the secret compartments where he hid the fake bones. The Lord's castle gate, rigged with Grimwald's special guest management system, aka hidden spikes. This is when I realized medieval society wasn't a community, it was a criminal network with really good PR. Everyone was dirty, everyone had dirt on everyone else, and the blacksmith? He was basically the medieval equivalent of a mob lawyer. He knew where all the bodies were buried because he made the shovels. 3 months into my apprenticeship, Grimwald pulls me aside. Boy, you're ready for advanced training. Tonight we're going to learn about metalworking. Special metalworking. Turns out, special metalworking meant melting down stolen church bells, reworking them into fake coins, and selling them back to the church. The same church that had reported the bells stolen. The same bells Grimwald had helped steal in the first place. That's when I knew I had to get out. Not because I was developing a conscience, let's be real. 12-year-old me was already morally flexible enough to work for a medieval criminal mastermind. No, I had to leave because I realized Grimwald's business model had one tiny flaw. Eventually, he was going to run out of customers. Because eventually, his customers were going to run out of breathing. The blacksmith business wasn't about making things. It was about you and making things, including people. So I did what any smart medieval apprentice would do. I stole his best tools, burned down his customer records, and used his own skeleton keys to rob him blind on my way out of town. Hey, he taught me well. But if you think the blacksmith business was twisted, wait until you hear about my next career choice. The monastery. Because turns out, when you take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, there are some very creative interpretations of what those vows actually mean. After escaping the blacksmith's criminal empire with my life and a bag full of stolen tools, I figured I needed to find something holier. Clean up my act, find some inner peace, maybe get right with the big guy upstairs. Yeah, that lasted about 5 minutes. Welcome to St. Corruption's monastery, where the monks took vows of poverty so seriously they made sure everyone else stayed poor too. Brother Francis was the guy who interviewed me. Picture the most wholesome, peaceful-looking monk you can imagine. Soft voice, kind eyes, gentle smile. The kind of guy who'd help old ladies cross the street and then steal their purses on the other side. "My son," he said, hands folded in prayer. "Are you ready to dedicate your life to serving God, copying His holy word, and preserving sacred knowledge for future generations?" Yes, Brother Francis. Excellent. Here's your first assignment. We need 47 copies of a letter from the Pope declaring that Sister Margaret of Wessex has been granted sainthood. Oh, that's wonderful. She must have performed amazing miracles. Yeah, about that. Sister Margaret doesn't exist. Never did. But the bishop of wherever the hell is paying us 50 gold pieces per letter. So she's about to become very miraculous. And that's how I learned that medieval monasteries weren't houses of worship. They were forgery factories with better marketing. See, here's the thing about monks. We had the best education, the finest materials, and access to official church documents. We were basically medieval document experts. And in a world where most people couldn't read, we could make any piece of paper say anything and nobody could challenge us. Brother Francis wasn't just forging saint letters. Oh no, that was small-time stuff. This guy was running a full-service document scam operation. Fake royal decrees. By order of the king, Brother Francis is exempt from all taxes forever. Counterfeit marriage certificates. For when you need to be married to 3 different people in 3 different towns and the church frowns on that sort of thing. Phony land deeds. According to this totally authentic document from 200 years ago, the monastery actually owns your entire village. Sorry. Bootleg indulgences. Why confess your sins to a priest when you can just buy a pre-forgiveness certificate? It's like medieval PayPal for your soul. But the really twisted part? The monastery's specialty was relic manufacturing. You know what a relic is, right? Some body part or possession of a saint that's supposed to have magical healing properties. Finger bones, hair, pieces of clothing, that sort of thing. Well, Brother Marcus ran the relic division. He had a whole assembly line going. Chicken bones became saint fingers. Dog hair became saint beards. And don't even ask where those fragments of the true cross came from. Let's just say the monastery's outhouse needed frequent repairs. Step right up. Get your authentic piece of St. Peter's toenail. Guaranteed to cure everything from headaches to moral bankruptcy. And if you act now, we'll throw in a free splinter from the manger where Jesus was born. The manger splinters were actually from Brother Thomas's carpentry projects. But hey, wood is wood, right? These guys had a catalog, a whole pricing structure. Basic saint parts were cheap finger bones, hair, clothing scraps. But premium saints? Those cost extra. Want a piece of Mary Magdalene's dress? That'll be 20 gold pieces. Need some of St. Augustine's blood? 50 gold, and we'll throw in a certificate of authenticity signed by the Pope himself. The Pope's signature? Also forged by Brother Francis, who was getting so good at papal forgery that he started signing his grocery lists as Pope Gregory IX. But here's where it gets really insane. The monastery wasn't just selling relics to random peasants. They were selling them to other churches. Churches that would then sell them to other churches. It was like a medieval pyramid scheme, except instead of essential oils, they were peddling fake Saint bones. And the competition was fierce. The monastery down the road claimed they had St. Patrick's lucky shamrock. So we had to one-up them with St. Patrick's entire hat. They had a piece of Noah's Arkansas. We had Noah's compass. They had one of the stones that killed Goliath. We had David's backup sling. Brother Jerome was in charge of quality control, and this guy was an artist. He'd age the relics with tea stains and dirt. He'd create elaborate backstories about how each relic was discovered. He once spent 3 weeks crafting a fake letter from St. Paul explaining why he'd left his sandal in a cave in Spain, just to justify why we happened to have St. Paul's sandal for sale. The sandal was Brother Jerome's old shoe, but with enough holy water and creative marketing, anything becomes sacred. And the absolute craziest part? It worked. We were making more money than actual merchants. Peasants would walk for days to buy our relics. Nobles would compete to see who could own the most saint parts. We had waiting lists for the premium stuff. Brother Francis showed me the books one day, and I'm talking about the real books, not the ones we showed the bishop during inspections. We were pulling in more gold than the royal treasury. The monastery's vow of poverty was the biggest joke since the Crusades. These guys had secret bank accounts, private wine cellars, and Brother Marcus had a side business breeding horses with the money from St. Bone sales. But you want to know the most twisted part? The thing that made me realize I had to get out? One day, a desperate mother came to the monastery. Her daughter was dying, and she'd heard we had a piece of St. Lucia's veil that could cure any illness. She offered us everything, her life savings, her house, her husband's farming tools, for just a small piece of this miraculous cloth. Brother Francis sold it to her. 20 gold pieces for a scrap of fabric that came from Sister Agnes's old bedsheet. The little girl died 2 days later. The mother came back, not angry, just broken. She thanked us for trying, said it must have been God's will, that the relic had surely helped her daughter find peace in her final moments. That's when I realized what we were really selling. Not hope, not healing. We were selling the illusion of hope while profiting from people's desperation. Medieval monasteries weren't preserving knowledge. They were manufacturing lies. We weren't serving God, we were playing God. And we weren't helping people find salvation. We were selling them salvation at markup prices while keeping the real thing locked away in our private coffers. So I did what any morally flexible medieval teenager would do. I stole their entire forgery setup, made copies of all their client lists, and set up shop as a freelance document forger in the next town over. Hey, they taught me everything I needed to know about the family business. And business was good. But if you think religious fraud was profitable, wait until you hear about my next career move, becoming a knight. Because it turns out that chivalry is just a fancy word for organized violence with a PR team. After my stint as a freelance document forger got a little too hot, something about selling fake papal bulls to the wrong bishop, I decided to go legitimate. Time to become a knight. You know, defender of the innocent, protector of the weak, upholder of justice and chivalry. Oh man, past me was so naive. Sir Reginald the Righteous was looking for a squire, and I figured, hey, how hard could it be? Polish some armor, hold some weapons, learn about honor and courage, maybe save a damsel in distress, fight some dragons, that whole Disney prince thing. First day on the job, Sir Reginald pulls me aside. Lad, forget everything you think you know about knighthood. We're not heroes. We're not protectors. We're not defenders of the realm. What are we then, sir? We're a protection racket with horses and better costumes. Turns out medieval knights weren't noble warriors. They were basically the mafia with metal suits and government licenses to kill. Sir Reginald's business model was simple. Roll into a village, point out how dangerous the roads are, how many bandits are around, how terrible it would be if something happened to their crops/livestock/daughters. Then offer his protection services, for a small monthly fee. Protection from what, you ask? From Sir Reginald and his buddies. See, here's the thing about the feudal system nobody talks about. It wasn't a government, it was a pyramid scheme. The king grants land to lords. Lords grant land to knights. Knights protect peasants. Peasants pay everyone above them. But what happens when there's nothing to protect people from? You create something to protect them from. Sir Reginald had partnerships with every bandit group within 100 miles. He'd tip them off about merchant caravans, tell them which villages had the best loot, even provide them with weapons and armor. Then, after the bandits attacked, Sir Reginald would ride in like the hero, drive off the attackers, and collect his protection money from the grateful victims. It was like medieval insurance fraud, except instead of faking car accidents, they were faking dragon attacks. Oh yeah, about those dragons. Remember all those stories about brave knights slaying terrible beasts? Total marketing scam. Sir Reginald showed me his dragon. It was actually 3 guys in a really elaborate costume, complete with fake wings and a flamethrower made from pig's bladder filled with lamp oil. They'd terrorize a village for a few weeks, demand virgin sacrifices. The virgins were usually in on the scam and got a cut of the profits. Then Sir Reginald would show up and slay the beast in an epic staged battle. The villagers would throw a feast, shower him with gold and gratitude, and Sir Reginald would ride off to the next town. Meanwhile, the dragon crew would pack up their costume and meet him at the next village over, where they'd set up the whole scam again. This guy had a touring schedule. Dragon attacks booked 6 months in advance. He had different dragon costumes for different regions, fire dragons for the north, ice dragons for the mountain towns, sea serpents for coastal villages, and the marketing, chef's kiss. Each dragon had a backstory. The fire dragon of Blackmore Mountain had supposedly been terrorizing the region for centuries, waiting for a worthy champion. The ice dragon of the northern wastes was seeking revenge for its slain mate. The sea serpent of Hangman's Bay was protecting a cursed treasure. All complete nonsense, but people ate it up. They wanted to believe in heroes and monsters and epic battles between good and evil. Sir Reginald was just giving them what they wanted for a price. But the dragon scam was just the tip of the iceberg. Knights had their fingers in everything. Quest fraud. Oh, you need me to find the Holy Grail? That'll take about 6 months and cost you 500 gold pieces. Plus expenses. Damsel trafficking, those damsels in distress? Half of them were paid actresses. The other half were blackmail victims. Nice reputation you have there, Lady Margaret. Shame if something happened to it. Tournament fixing, medieval wrestling was fake. Knights would agree beforehand who would win each joust, then split the betting profits. Relic running, remember those fake relics from the monastery? Knights were the distribution network. Oh, you want St. Christopher's compass? I can get that for you. Gonna cost extra though, dangerous quest and all. And the codes of chivalry? Total PR nonsense. Protect the innocent meant protect people who pay us. Defend the weak meant defend people who can't defend themselves from U.S. Honor above all meant honor the contract terms, especially the payment schedule. Sir Reginald had a whole manual of chivalric interpretations. Speak truth equals don't lie to people who outrank you. Protect women and children equals their valuable assets. Don't damage them unnecessarily. Show mercy to enemies equals keep them alive so they can pay ransom. Be generous equals generous with other people's money. Fear God and maintain His church equals the church pays well for certain services. But here's the kicker. The thing that broke my brain and made me realize the entire medieval world was one giant criminal conspiracy. Sir Reginald wasn't working alone. He was part of a network. Knights, bandits, merchants, tax collectors, sheriffs, priests, they were all in on it together. The sheriff would tip off the knights about which villages had money. The merchants would inflate prices after bandit attacks. The tax collectors would give knights a cut in exchange for muscle when collecting debts. The priests would sell protection blessings and anti-dragon insurance. It was like a medieval crime syndicate, except instead of controlling drugs or gambling, they controlled everything. Safety, commerce, religion, justice, all of it was just different branches of the same corrupt tree. I watched Sir Reginald meet with Sheriff Baldwin, Brother Marcus from my old monastery, Grimwald the blacksmith, apparently he'd rebuilt his shop, and Marcus the merchant to plan out the next quarter's adventures. They had spreadsheets, medieval spreadsheets, written on parchment tracking protection payments, dragon attack schedules, relic delivery routes, and blackmail targets. They were running medieval society like a business. And the product they were selling? The illusion of safety, justice, and order. That's when I realized the truth. There were no heroes in the medieval world. There were no villains either. There were just people trying to survive in a system designed to crush them, and the people smart enough to profit from that crushing. The knights weren't protecting anyone from the monsters. The knights were the monsters. So what did I do? Well, I stole Sir Reginald's entire client list, his dragon costume collection, and his secret stash of quest rewards that he'd never actually delivered to his clients. Then I set myself up as a freelance monster slayer. Business was excellent. Turns out, people will pay anything to believe someone's fighting the monsters, even when the monsters are imaginary. Especially when the monsters are imaginary. But if you think knights were corrupt, wait until you meet the plague doctors. Because when death is your business, business is always booming. After my night gig went south, something about Sir Reginald finding out about the missing dragon costumes, I found myself in need of a recession-proof career. Something that would always be in demand, no matter what was happening in the world. Enter the plague. 1348. The Black Death is sweeping through Europe like a really aggressive marketing campaign for the afterlife. People are dropping faster than my faith in honest employment. And in the middle of all this death and despair, there's one profession that's absolutely booming. Plague doctor. You know the costume, right? Long black robe, wide-brimmed hat, and that distinctive bird beak mask stuffed with protective herbs. We looked like a cross between a raven and a medieval hazmat suit, which was exactly the vibe we were going for. Dr. Mortimer Blackbeak was the guy who trained me. And yes, that was his real name. His parents either had an amazing sense of humor or they knew exactly what career path their son was destined for. Listen, apprentice, he told me through his beak, voice all muffled and ominous. Plague doctoring isn't about curing people. That's impossible. Plague doctoring is about managing expectations while maximizing profit margins. But Dr. Blackbeak, shouldn't we try to help people? Help them? Son, we are helping them. We're helping them die with dignity. For a very reasonable fee. And that's how I learned that plague doctors weren't medical professionals. We were death consultants with really good costumes. See, here's the thing about the plague. It killed about 60% of everyone it touched, which means your survival rate as a patient was basically a coin flip. But if you were the guy treating the plague patients, well, let's just say Dr. Blackbeak had never met a pandemic he couldn't profit from. The plague doctor business model was genius. Diagnostic fees. Yep, that's plague all right. That'll be 5 silver pieces for the diagnosis. Treatment packages. Basic treatment is bloodletting and herbs. Premium package includes prayers and a comfortable deathbed. Deluxe package gets you a fancy funeral and someone to cry at your wake. Preventive medicine. This special amulet will protect you from plague. Only 10 gold pieces, and I'll throw in a bottle of holy water. Last rites services. Want to confess your sins before you die? I'm not a priest, but I play one on house calls. 50% off if you pay in advance. But wait, there's more. Dr. Blackbeak wasn't just treating the plague, he was spreading it. On purpose. See, plague is bad for most businesses, but it's excellent for plague doctors. So if things got too quiet in our territory, Dr. Blackbeak would take a little trip to the next town over, visit some patients there, then come back and accidentally contaminate our local water supply. Whoops, he'd say, watching the infection rate spike. Looks like we've got an outbreak. Better call the plague doctor. It was like medieval arson, except instead of burning down buildings to collect insurance money, we were burning down immune systems to collect medical fees. And the treatments? Oh man, the treatments were pure medieval performance art. Bloodletting. We need to drain the bad blood out of you. This will either cure you or kill you faster. But either way, you'll stop complaining. Herbal remedies, fancy salads made from whatever weeds Dr. Blackbeak found behind the tavern. This is a special blend of healing herbs from the Far East. The Far East being the far east side of his garden. Miasma management, we'd wave incense around and tell people we were purifying the air. The incense was usually just burning garbage, but it smelled mysterious and medicalish. Humoral balancing, medieval medicine believed your health depended on balancing 4 bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Our job was to rebalance these humors, which mostly involved making people vomit in expensive and elaborate ways. But the really twisted part was the death certificates. Dr. Blackbeak had arrangements with every corrupt official in 3 counties. For the right price, he could make anyone's cause of death say whatever you wanted. Rich uncle died of plague? Actually, he died peacefully in his sleep, so his will is still valid. Rival merchant died of plague? Actually, he died of divine punishment for usury, so his debts transfer to his family. Our inconvenient witness died of plague? Actually, he died of sudden apoplexy brought on by guilt, so his testimony is worthless. Death certificates were like medieval search engine optimization: pay enough, and your version of events becomes the official truth. And here's where it gets really dark. Dr. Blackbeak wasn't just falsifying death certificates. He was creating them. Remember those preventive amulets he sold? They weren't protective. They were identifying tags, like a medieval hit list. People who couldn't pay their medical bills, people who asked too many questions, people who threatened to expose our operation. They all got special amulets. These amulets were laced with actual plague-infected material. Were Dr. Blackbeak's special protection, and you'd be dead within a week. Then he'd show up to treat you, collect his fees from your desperate family, and when you inevitably died, he'd shake his bird head sadly and say, "I'm sorry, the plague was too advanced." But at least he died with the best medical care available. It was a medieval subscription service for murder. Pay monthly for plague protection. And Dr. Blackbeak would make sure you never had to worry about plague again, because you'd be dead. But here's the most insane part. IT worked. People were so terrified of plague that they'd pay anything for protection, even protection that was literally killing them. Dr. Blackbeak had a 100% customer satisfaction rate, because dead customers don't complain. And the competition between plague doctors? Brutal. We had territorial wars over who got to treat which neighborhoods. Dr. Blackbeak once poisoned 3 rival doctors by sending them congratulatory wine for their successful treatments. They died of what appeared to be plague, which only enhanced Dr. Blackbeak's reputation as the sole surviving expert in the region. Medieval Yelp reviews. Dr. Blackbeak is amazing. All his competitors mysteriously died of the disease they were treating, which proves he's the only doctor skilled enough to stay alive. 5 stars. Would recommend before dying horribly. But you want to know what finally made me quit the plague doctor business? What made me realize that even I had limits to my moral flexibility? A little girl named Emma, 7 years old, red hair, gap-toothed smile. Her parents brought her to Dr. Blackbeak because she had a cough. Just a cough. Not plague, not consumption, just a regular kid cough that would have gone away with some rest and warm soup. Dr. Blackbeak diagnosed her with early-stage plague and prescribed the full treatment package: bloodletting, herbal purges, humoral balancing, and of course, his special protective amulet. I watched that little girl get sicker and sicker from the treatments. The bloodletting weakened her. The herbal purges made her vomit until she was dehydrated. The humoral balancing involved making her drink combinations of liquids that were essentially poison. And the amulet? The amulet was slowly killing her with actual plague bacteria. Her parents paid everything they had. Sold their house, their livestock, borrowed money from loan sharks. All to save their daughter from a disease she didn't have, using treatments that were literally murdering her. She died on a Tuesday. Dr. Blackbeak collected his final fee from the grieving parents and told them their daughter was in a better place now, free from the suffering of this plague-ridden world. That night, I stole every medical supply Dr. Blackbeak had, burned down his laboratory, and used his own poisoned amulets to give him a taste of his own medicine. Turns out, Dr. Blackbeak wasn't immune to plague after all. Who knew? But here's the kicker. The thing that really shows you how deep the corruption went. When Dr. Blackbeak died, the other plague doctors in the region didn't investigate. They didn't ask questions. They just divided up his territory and continued the same scams with the same methods. Because that's what medieval medicine was, a protection racket disguised as healthcare. We weren't curing diseases, we were selling diseases and then charging people to cure them. We weren't fighting death, we were partnering with death and taking a commission on every corpse. The Black Death didn't kill 60% of Europe's population. We did. The plague doctors, the fake treatments, the corrupt medicine, the profiteering from desperation. We turned a manageable epidemic into a continental catastrophe because there was too much money to be made from people dying slowly. And you know what the really terrifying part is? It's still happening. Different costumes, different diseases, same basic business model. Create fear, sell hope, profit from desperation, and blame the victims when your cures don't work. So what did I do after destroying the plague doctor network in my region? Well, I figured if I was going to profit from people's misery, I might as well make them laugh while I rob them blind. Time to become a jester. Because it turns out, comedy is the one medieval career where everyone expects you to lie, cheat, and make fun of powerful people. Finally, a job that matched my skill set. After my stint as a plague doctor ended with, well, let's call it early retirement due to karma, I decided to try a career that was supposed to be dishonest. Something where lying, cheating, and making fun of people wasn't a bug. It was a feature. Enter the jester business. Now, when most people think medieval jester, they picture some harmless fool in colorful clothes telling knock-knock jokes to kings and juggling for pennies. Maybe doing a little slapstick, maybe making fun of the nobility in a cute, harmless way. Oh, sweet summer children. Medieval jesters weren't entertainers. We were information brokers with comedy as a cover story. Jingleberry the Jester was my mentor, and yes, that was his stage name. His real name was Marcus Goldstein, and he had a master's degree from the University of Bologna in what we'd now call psychological manipulation with a minor in economics. Listen, apprentice, Jingleberry told me while counting a stack of gold coins. Comedy isn't about making people laugh. Comedy is about making people think they're laughing while you pick their pockets and steal their secrets. But Master Jingleberry, isn't our job to entertain the court? Entertainment is what we do in front of everyone. Espionage is what we do behind the scenes. And blackmail? Well, that's what we do in our spare time. See, here's what nobody tells you about medieval jesters. We had access. Total access. Kings, nobles, merchants, clergy. Everyone wanted to hire the funny guy for their parties. And when people are drunk and laughing, they say things. Important things. Valuable things. Things that other people would pay very well to know. Jingleberry ran what was essentially a medieval intelligence network. Jesters in every major court, all reporting back to him with the latest gossip, political secrets, military plans, and personal scandals. Court of King Edmund. Jester reports that the king is having an affair with his brother's wife and planning to start a war to cover it up. Duke of Westmarch. Jester discovers the Duke is embezzling tax money to pay gambling debts to Italian merchants. Bishop of Nowhere Important. Jester finds out the bishop is selling church positions to the highest bidder and keeping a mistress in a convent. All of this information gets back to Jingleberry, who then sells it to the highest bidder. Kings pay to know what other kings are planning. Nobles pay to get dirt on their rivals. Merchants pay for insider information on political changes that might affect trade routes. But wait, it gets better. Jingleberry wasn't just selling information, he was creating it. Remember, jesters are supposed to make jokes about current events, right? Well, what happens when the current events in your jokes are completely made up? Jingleberry would invent scandals, spread them through his network of jesters, and by the time the joke reached the third or fourth court, people would assume it was based on real gossip. Then he'd sell confirmation of these fake scandals to people who wanted them to be true. Medieval fake news. People. Jingleberry was running disinformation campaigns centuries before social media made it mainstream. Hey! Did you hear the one about Duke Harold's secret dragon egg collection? Jingle jingle, apparently he's planning to hatch them and conquer France. Jingle jingle. 2 weeks later, Urgent intelligence. Duke Harold confirmed to be in possession of dragon eggs, planning French invasion. This information cost me 3 gold pieces and a promise not to reveal my source. Duke Harold had never seen a dragon egg in his life, but by the time Jingleberry was done with him, half of Europe believed he was running a medieval Jurassic Park. And the performance aspect? Pure criminal genius. See, jesters had legal immunity. We could literally insult anyone, reveal embarrassing secrets, mock the powerful, and nobody could touch us because it's just comedy, Your Majesty, just harmless fun. Except it wasn't harmless, and it definitely wasn't just for fun. Jingleberry would take contracts from nobles who wanted their enemies humiliated. I need you to destroy Lord Pemberton's reputation, but I can't be connected to it. No problem, Your Grace. By next week, everyone will be laughing about Lord Pemberton's alleged sheep-bothering hobby and his rumored secret debt to Jewish moneylenders. Why did Lord Pemberton cross the road? To get to his secret meeting with the moneylenders. Jingle jingle, and why did he bring a sheep? Because his credit is so bad. Jingle jingle. 3 performances later, Lord Pemberton's reputation was destroyed, his political allies abandoned him, and his business partnerships collapsed. All because of a few jokes that everyone knew were based on real gossip. But the most twisted part of the jester business was the protection racket. Jingleberry didn't just mock people for money. He offered not to mock them for even more money. Your Lordship, I've been hearing some very funny stories about your financial arrangements. Real knee-slappers. The kind of jokes that would have the whole court rolling on the floor laughing. Of course, I'd hate for your reputation to become a source of entertainment for the masses. Perhaps we could arrange a small monthly fee to ensure my comedy focuses on other topics. Medieval comedy insurance. Pay Jingleberry, and your embarrassing secrets stayed secret. Don't pay, and suddenly every jester in the kingdom was making jokes about your gambling debts, your wife's infidelity, or your suspiciously close relationship with your horse. And here's where it gets really insane. Jingleberry had dirt on everyone. Kings, bishops, merchants, knights. He'd been collecting secrets for decades. His private files read like a medieval TMZ archive. But he didn't just use this information for blackmail. Oh no, that would be too simple. He used it for social engineering. Want to start a war between 2 kingdoms? Spread jokes about how King A insulted King B's wife. Want to crash a merchant's business? Make everyone laugh about his creative bookkeeping. Want to get a corrupt bishop removed from office? Tell hilarious stories about his theological interpretations of celibacy. Jingleberry wasn't just a jester, he was a puppet master. He could topple governments with a good punchline. He could destroy reputations with a catchy song. He could change the course of history with the right joke told to the right audience at the right time. And the beautiful part? Everyone thought he was just a harmless entertainer. Oh, that Jingleberry, always making us laugh with his silly stories. Such a character. Meanwhile, Jingleberry was orchestrating the rise and fall of entire dynasties based on who was paying him the most that week. I watched him destroy a merchant family that had been successful for generations, just because a rival merchant guild offered him 50 gold pieces. 3 weeks of carefully crafted jokes about their creative weights and measures, and suddenly nobody would trade with them. I saw him end a war by convincing both sides that the other side's generals were secret cowards. A few songs about how Sir this and that ran away from a rabbit, and suddenly neither side wanted to fight because they were afraid their own troops would abandon them. And then I watched him destroy an innocent man just for practice. A baker named Thomas. Good man, honest baker, loved by his community. No enemies, no secrets, no reason for anyone to target him. Jingleberry decided Thomas would be a good test case for a new type of reputation assassination he was developing. I want to see how quickly I can destroy someone who's genuinely innocent. For research purposes. 2 months later, Thomas was run out of town as a suspected warlock. His bakery was burned down, and his wife left him because she believed the stories about him poisoning bread with demon flour. Thomas had never hurt anyone in his life. His only crime was existing in the same town as Jingleberry when Jingleberry was bored. That's when I realized what jesters really were. We weren't entertainers. We weren't even criminals. We were weapons of mass destruction disguised as comedy acts. So I did what I was getting really good at by this point. I stole all of Jingleberry's secret files, burned down his network, and used his own blackmail material to destroy his reputation. The last I heard, he was working as a stable boy in a monastery, and even the horses wouldn't listen to his jokes. But if you think comedy was a dark business, wait until you meet the medieval tax collectors. Because it turns out, when you're legally allowed to take people's money, the temptation to take all of their money becomes absolutely irresistible. After destroying the Jester Intelligence Network, I found myself once again in need of employment. But this time I wanted something stable, something respectable, something with clear legal authority and government backing. Yeah, I know. Respectable and tax collector in the same sentence. But hey, at least this time my crime spree would be completely legal. Master Cornelius Goldgrab was the senior tax collector for the region, and this guy had turned government revenue collection into an art form. Picture the most stereotypical greedy accountant you can imagine. Then give him legal authority to ruin people's lives and a medieval accounting system that nobody else understood. "Welcome to the business, apprentice," he said, rubbing his hands together like a cartoon villain. "Rule number 1. The king gets his share. Rule number 2. We get our share. Rule number 3. There's always a way to increase both shares. But Master Cornelius, don't we just collect what people owe according to the tax laws?" "Tax laws? Oh, my sweet naive apprentice. Tax laws are more like guidelines, suggestions, starting points for negotiation. And that's how I learned that medieval taxation wasn't revenue collection. It was legalized extortion with really complicated paperwork. See, here's the thing about medieval taxes. They were so complicated that nobody, not even the people collecting them, really understood what anyone actually owed. There were taxes on land, taxes on livestock, taxes on trade, taxes on inheritance, taxes on getting married, taxes on not getting married, taxes on having children, taxes on not having children. There were seasonal taxes, emergency taxes, war taxes, peace taxes, bridge taxes, even if there was no bridge, road taxes, even if there was no road, and my personal favorite, the royal happiness tax, a fee you had to pay whenever the king was in a good mood. With a system that complicated, a creative tax collector could basically charge whatever he wanted and claim it was legitimate. Let's see here, Farmer Brown. You owe 3 silver for the land tax, 2 silver for the livestock tax, 1 silver for the harvest tax, For silver for the prosperity tax. Yes, you have to pay extra for doing well. 2 silver for the protection tax. And, oh, what's this? You painted your barn red? That's a royal color tax. Another 5 silver. But sir, I painted it red because red paint was cheaper. Ah, then that's a frugality tax. You're not supporting local artists by buying expensive paint. Another 3 silver. It was like medieval DLC. Every transaction came with hidden fees, expansion packs, and premium upgrade options. But the real money wasn't in collecting legitimate taxes. Oh no, that was small-time stuff. The real profit came from Cornelius's side businesses. Tax farming. We'd buy the right to collect taxes in certain areas, then collect way more than we paid for the right and keep the difference. Assessment fraud. We'd evaluate people's property at whatever value made us the most money. Rich people who paid bribes had surprisingly worthless property. Poor people who couldn't pay bribes were apparently sitting on gold mines. Deadline manipulation. We'd change tax deadlines without telling anyone, then charge massive late fees when people missed payments they didn't know were due. Documentation scams. Oh, you paid your taxes last month? Funny, I don't have any record of that. You must have paid someone else. That'll be double taxes this month, plus penalties. Protection services. Nice farm you have here. Shame if the tax assessor decided it was worth 10 times what you thought. Of course, for a small monthly fee, I could make sure the assessment stays reasonable. But Cornelius's masterpiece was the phantom tax scam. He'd create completely fake taxes, collect money for them, then pocket the cash. The beauty of it was that the tax system was so complicated that nobody questioned new taxes. They just assumed they'd missed something in the hundreds of pages of tax code. Attention citizens! The king has declared a new royal unicorn preservation tax. Even though unicorns don't exist, we must be prepared in case they do exist someday. 5 gold pieces per household, due immediately. And people paid it. They actually paid a tax on mythical creatures because the paperwork looked official and they were too scared to question government authority. Cornelius collected over 500 gold pieces for the unicorn tax before someone finally asked to see the royal decree. Turns out, Cornelius had written it himself using official letterhead he'd stolen from the royal chancellery. But here's where the tax collection business gets really dark. The seizure authority. Tax collectors had the legal right to take people's property if they couldn't pay their taxes. Sounds reasonable, right? Can't pay your bills, you lose your stuff. Except Cornelius had partnerships with every merchant, pawn shop, and moneylender in the region. He'd seize property from people who couldn't pay, sell it to his partners at below-market prices, and they'd split the profits. But wait, it gets worse. Cornelius would deliberately overassess people's taxes, knowing they couldn't pay the full amount. Then he'd offer them a payment plan. They could keep their property if they paid a monthly fee that was actually more than their original tax bill. Don't worry, Farmer Johnson. I know you can't pay 50 gold pieces for your annual taxes. Tell you what, you can pay me 5 gold pieces per month for the next 2 years. That's only, calculates quickly, 120 gold pieces total. I'm saving you money. And if people fell behind on their payment plan, well, then Cornelius would seize their property and demand they continue making payments on the original debt. Because the payment plan was a separate contract from the tax obligation. Medieval subprime lending, right there. Cornelius was creating debt traps that would make modern payday loan companies weep with envy. But the absolute craziest part of the tax collection business was the competitive bidding for tax farming rights. Different tax collectors would bid against each other for the right to collect taxes in specific regions. Whoever bid the highest got the territory, and they had to pay the crown their bid amount up front. Which means tax collectors had to collect way more than they bid just to break even, let alone make a profit. This created a race to the bottom in terms of ethics. The most corrupt tax collector would always outbid the honest ones because they knew they could collect more through scams, fraud, and extortion. Honest tax collection was literally a losing business model. I watched Cornelius destroy entire families just to meet his quotas. Farmers who'd been working the same land for generations, suddenly owing more in taxes than their farms were worth. Merchants who'd built honest businesses, bankrupted by mysterious luxury goods taxes that seemed to apply only to them. And the worst part? It was all completely legal. Cornelius had government authority, official documentation, and royal backing for everything he did. When people complained, he'd show them the tax code. Right here in subsection 47b, paragraph 15, subclause 8, it clearly states that anyone who disputes their tax assessment owes an additional penalty equal to 50% of the disputed amount. Would you like to continue this conversation? The moment I knew I had to get out was when Cornelius decided to foreclose on an orphanage. The nuns who ran it couldn't pay the religious property maintenance tax, a fee Cornelius had invented that morning. 23 children, all under the age of 10, about to be thrown out on the street because Cornelius thought the orphanage property would make a good investment rental. I asked him how he could sleep at night. "Very well," he replied. "On silk sheets, in a bed I bought with tax money I collected from people who were foolish enough to think the government worked for them instead of the other way around." That's when I realized that taxation wasn't about funding government services or maintaining social order. It was about creating a legal framework for the systematic transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, with government officials taking a cut for facilitating the transfer. Medieval taxation was just theft with paperwork. So I did what was becoming my signature move. I stole all of Cornelius's client records, burned down his office, and used his own tax fraud evidence to get him arrested for embezzling crown funds. Last I heard, he was in the royal dungeon, still trying to calculate how much tax he owed on his prison meals. But if you think tax collectors were corrupt, wait until you meet the executioners. Because when your job is literally killing people, the temptation to kill the right people for the right reasons at the right prices becomes absolutely irresistible. After bringing down the tax collection empire and dodging several assassination attempts by very angry government officials, I realized I needed a career change that would put me on the right side of medieval justice for once. Yeah, I know. Right side of justice and professional killer seem contradictory. But hey, at least executioners were supposed to kill people. Finally, a job where murder was in the official job description. Master Axel Chopalot, and I swear that was his real name, his parents had a twisted sense of humor, was the royal executioner for the region. This guy had turned judicial killing into performance art. "Welcome to the family business, apprentice," he said, testing the edge of his favorite axe. Rule 1. Always keep your blade sharp. Rule 2. Always keep your audience entertained. Rule 3. Always keep your clients satisfied. Clients? But Master Axel, don't we work for the crown? Executing criminals according to royal justice. Oh, sweet naive apprentice. The Crown is just one of our clients. We work for anyone who can pay our fees and has someone they need permanently removed from their problems. And that's how I learned that medieval executioners weren't instruments of justice. We were freelance assassins with government licenses and really good publicity departments. See, here's what nobody tells you about medieval executions. Most of them were custom orders. Sure, we executed the occasional actual criminal murderers, thieves, traitors, people who committed real crimes. But the real money came from what Master Axel called social problem solving. Rich merchant has a business rival who's cutting into his profits? Your Honor, I have evidence that Merchant Johnson is actually a heretic who's been selling cursed goods. Surely this merits investigation and execution. Noble Lord wants his brother's inheritance? Your Majesty, I've discovered that my dear brother has been secretly corresponding with our enemies. Treason of the highest order. Off with his head. Corrupt sheriff needs to silence a witness? Citizens of the realm, we've apprehended the notorious criminal who's been terrorizing our peaceful community. Justice demands swift execution. It was like medieval Yelp, except instead of bad reviews, unsatisfied customers got their competitors murdered by the state. Master Axel had a price list. Standard execution. Convicted criminal 5 gold pieces, rush execution. Within 24 hours, 10 gold pieces. Discreet execution, make it look accidental, 25 gold pieces, public spectacle execution. Extra entertainment value, 15 gold pieces, clean execution. Quick and painless, 20 gold pieces, messy execution. Send a message to others, 30 gold pieces, fake execution. Person escapes. Everyone thinks they're dead, 50 gold pieces. Oh yeah. Fake executions were a huge part of the business. Rich people who'd been sentenced to death could pay Master Axel to fake their execution, then disappear to start new lives in other kingdoms. The setup was genius. 1. Condemned person pays Master Axel 100 gold pieces. 2. Master Axel bribes the guards to look the other way. 3. Execution day arrives, big public spectacle. 4. Master Axel uses a fake blade that retracts on impact. 5. Dead person is covered with pig's blood, declared deceased. 6. Body gets taken to Master Axel's private morgue. 7. Corpse walks out the back door and rides away to freedom. 8. Everyone else thinks justice has been served. Master Axel was running a medieval witness protection program. Except instead of protecting witnesses from criminals, he was protecting criminals from justice. For the right price, anyone could buy their way out of a death sentence. But here's where it gets really twisted. Master Axel would often execute innocent people in place of the guilty ones who'd paid for fake deaths. Rich Lord Pemberton pays for a fake execution and escapes to France. But the crowd expects to see someone die, and Master Axel has a reputation to maintain. So he grabs some random peasant, usually someone in debt, someone without family, someone nobody will miss, and executes them instead. Ladies and gentlemen, justice has been served. Lord Pemberton has paid for his crimes with his life. Except Lord Pemberton was sipping wine in Paris while some innocent farmer was rotting in a grave marked with Pemberton's name. Medieval identity theft taken to the ultimate extreme. But wait, there's more. Master Axel wasn't just taking bribes to fake executions, he was taking bribes to cause executions. Remember that price list? Those weren't just for people who were already condemned. Those were for people who Master Axel would get condemned. The discreet execution package included framing the target for a capital crime, providing false evidence to the court, bribing witnesses to testify against them, and then executing them for the crime Master Axel had pinned on them. It was like a medieval murder for hire service, except instead of sneaking around in the shadows, Master Axel did it all in broad daylight with government approval and cheering crowds. And the corruption went all the way to the top. Judges would throw cases Master Axel's way. Sheriffs would arrest people Master Axel needed eliminated. Court clerks would lose evidence that might prove people's innocence. Master Axel wasn't just an executioner. He was the center of a criminal conspiracy that included half the judicial system. The most insane case I witnessed. Lady Margaret wanted her husband dead so she could marry her younger lover. She paid Master Axel 200 gold pieces for the complete service package. Within a month, Lord Margaret was arrested for treason, tried by a judge who owed Master Axel money, convicted by a jury that Master Axel had bribed, and sentenced to death by a sheriff who was getting a cut of the profits. The evidence against Lord Margaret? Letters proving he was selling military secrets to enemy kingdoms. The letters were forgeries created by the same monastery scribes I used to work with. Turns out they had ongoing contracts with Master Axel for judicial documentation services. Lord Margaret was executed on a Tuesday. Lady Margaret married her lover on Friday. Master Axel collected his fee on Saturday. The judge, sheriff, jury, and forgers all got their cuts on Sunday. Perfect crime, except for one tiny detail. Lord Margaret was actually innocent. He'd never committed treason, never sold secrets, never done anything worse than occasionally forgetting his wife's birthday. But innocence was just a minor technicality in Master Axel's business model. And here's the most twisted part. The crowds loved it. Public executions were the medieval equivalent of reality TV. People would travel for miles to watch Master Axel work. He had fans, groupies, people who collected souvenirs from his executions and asked for autographs. Master Axel played to his audience. He'd give dramatic speeches about the condemned person's crimes, real or imaginary. He'd make jokes to get the crowd laughing. He'd draw out the suspense before the final blow. He was like a medieval game show host, except instead of giving away prizes, he was giving away death sentences. Ladies and gentlemen, do we think Lord Pemberton deserves to die for his terrible crimes against the realm? Crowd cheers. I can't hear you. Do we think justice demands his head? Crowd cheers louder. Then let's give the people what they want. X falls, crowd goes wild. Meanwhile, the real Lord Pemberton is in the audience, wearing a fake beard and cheering for his own death, before riding off to his new life in another country. But you want to know what finally made me quit the executioner business? What made me realize that even I couldn't stomach this level of corruption? A kid named Timothy, 12 years old, same age I was when this whole medieval career nightmare started. Timothy's crime? He stole a loaf of bread because his little sister was starving. His parents were dead, he had no relatives, no money, no options. Just a hungry kid trying to keep his sister alive. Normally, bread theft got you a fine or maybe a day in the stocks. But Timothy couldn't pay the fine, and someone had paid Master Axel to make an example of child thieves in the region. I watched Master Axel sharpen his axe while explaining to me how Timothy's execution would send a strong message about the importance of respecting property rights. That night, I stole Master Axel's execution schedule, freed every prisoner I could find, and burned down the entire judicial complex. Timothy and his sister disappeared into the night. Master Axel woke up to find his business in ashes and his reputation destroyed. That's when I realized the truth about medieval justice. It wasn't about crime and punishment. It wasn't about protecting society or maintaining order. It was about power. The power to decide who lives and who dies based on who has the most money and the best connections. Medieval law wasn't justice. It was just murder with paperwork. And that brings us to the final hour of this story. Because after 8 different careers, 8 different flavors of corruption, 8 different ways of discovering that every respectable profession was actually organized crime, I finally figured out what was really going on. The secret behind all medieval careers. The conspiracy that connected every guild, every profession, every level of society. The truth that would make everything else look like child's play. So here I am, 9 hours later, 8 careers destroyed, hundreds of crimes witnessed, thousands of people betrayed, robbed, murdered, or corrupted by the very system that was supposed to protect them. And you're probably thinking, okay, so medieval society was corrupt. We get it. Every job was criminal. What's the big revelation? The big revelation isn't that medieval careers were corrupt. The big revelation is that there were no careers. Not one. Not a single legitimate profession in the entire medieval world. Because the entire concept of choosing a career was the biggest scam of all. See, I thought I was just jumping from job to job, discovering that each profession happened to be corrupt. But that's not what was happening. What was happening was that I was being passed along. Think about it. How does a 12-year-old kid with no connections, no family, no money, no skills, manage to get apprenticeships with the most successful criminals in 8 different professions? Luck? Coincidence? My charming personality? No, I was being recruited. Every single career change I made was planned, orchestrated, managed by people who were watching me, testing me, seeing how I'd handle different types of crime. Grimwald the blacksmith didn't just happen to need an apprentice the day I showed up. He'd been told to expect me. Brother Francis didn't randomly select me from a group of potential monks. My name was on a list. Sir Reginald, Dr. Blackbeak, Jingleberry, Cornelius, Master Axel. They were all part of the same network, the same organization. I thought I was escaping from one corrupt profession to another, but I was actually just moving through different departments of the same criminal empire. The blacksmith department handled weapons and disposal. The monastery department handled documentation and propaganda. The night department handled enforcement and territory control. The plague doctor department handled population management and elimination of problems. The jester department handled intelligence and psychological warfare. The tax collector department handled revenue generation and wealth transfer. The executioner department handled final solutions and public relations. It was all one business. One massive medieval criminal organization that had infiltrated every level of society, every profession, every institution. And Career Day? That wasn't about helping young people find their calling. It was a recruitment fair for organized crime. The entire medieval world was run by what we'd now call a mafia. Except instead of controlling drugs and gambling in one city, They controlled everything in every city. Food production, controlled by the farmers who were actually running protection rackets on their own crops. Transportation, controlled by the merchants who were actually smuggling contraband and laundering money through legitimate trade. Religion, controlled by the clergy who were actually running the biggest fraud operation in human history. Government, controlled by the nobles who were actually just the public face of the criminal organization. Law enforcement, controlled by sheriffs and judges who were actually just middle management in the criminal hierarchy. Education, controlled by scribes and scholars who were actually propaganda specialists and forgers. Healthcare, controlled by doctors who were actually population control specialists. Entertainment, controlled by jesters and minstrels who were actually intelligence agents and psychological warfare experts. There was no legitimate authority in the medieval world, no honest institutions, no clean professions. The entire concept of civilization was just organized crime with better marketing. And the most terrifying part? It worked. For centuries, this system functioned perfectly. People believed they were living in a world of knights and nobles, priests and kings, honest work and divine justice. But they were actually living in a world completely controlled by criminals who had convinced everyone that criminality was civilization. So when people ask me, what would you do if you found yourself choosing a medieval career? I tell them, run. Don't choose a career. Don't join a guild. Don't accept an apprenticeship. Don't trust anyone who offers you honest work or respectable employment. Because there is no honest work in a world where honesty is illegal and crime is the only career path available. But here's the really scary question. How do we know the system ever ended? How do we know we're not still living in it? Think about modern society for a second. Really think about it. Banking, they literally gamble with your money, crash the economy every few years, get bailed out by taxpayers, and charge you fees for the privilege of letting them lose your savings. Healthcare. They treat symptoms instead of causes, keep you sick enough to need constant treatment but not healthy enough to stop paying, and charge you thousands of dollars for medications that cost pennies to produce. Politics, politicians take money from corporations, pass laws that benefit their donors, and convince you that voting for them will somehow change a system they're profiting from. Law enforcement. They selectively enforce laws based on your wealth and connections, run private prisons as profit centers, and protect property over people. Education. They saddle you with debt for degrees that don't guarantee employment, teach you just enough to be productive workers but not enough to question the system, and convince you that success is measured by how much money you can make for someone else. Media. They manufacture consent for policies that benefit the wealthy, distract you with entertainment while real decisions are made behind closed doors, and sell your attention to advertisers while telling you they're keeping you informed. Even our honest careers follow the same pattern. You want to be a teacher? You'll spend your own money on supplies while administrators make six figures for creating more bureaucracy. You want to be a nurse? You'll save lives while insurance companies profit from death and suffering. You want to be a small business owner? You'll compete against corporations that don't pay taxes while you're audited for writing off lunch expenses. You want to be an artist? You'll create beauty while platforms take 70% of your revenue and claim they're supporting creativity. Sound familiar? Maybe medieval career day never ended. Maybe it just got more sophisticated. Maybe instead of choosing between blacksmith, monk, knight, plague doctor, jester, tax collector, and executioner. We're choosing between software developer, marketing manager, financial advisor, pharmaceutical sales rep, social media influencer, government contractor, and corporate lawyer. Different costumes. Same basic business model. The criminal organization that ran medieval society didn't disappear. It evolved. It adapted. It learned that instead of obvious corruption, subtle corruption works better. Instead of stealing everything at once, steal a little bit from everyone all the time. Instead of threatening people with swords and axes, threaten them with debt and unemployment. Instead of making people serve lords and kings, make them serve corporations and shareholders. Same pyramid. Same power structure. Same people getting rich while everyone else fights over scraps. Just with better PR and more comfortable chains. So here's my question for you, the audience. The question I want you to leave in the comments. If you woke up tomorrow and discovered that your current career was just another department in a massive criminal organization that controls society, what would you do? Would you quit and try to find honest work that doesn't exist? Would you try to reform the system from within while knowing that the system is designed to corrupt reformers? Would you accept that this is just how the world works and try to get your piece of the pie? Or would you do what I did, burn it all down and start over, knowing that whatever you build next might just become another version of the same thing? Don't forget to like and subscribe, because apparently even rebellion has been monetized by the algorithm. Welcome to Career Day. Choose wisely, or better yet, don't choose at all. Alright, let's see what you beautiful degenerates have to say about this little tale. This is historically inaccurate. Not all medieval professions were criminal enterprises. Oh, sweet summer child. Tell me which ones weren't, and I'll tell you which records were destroyed by the people running those legitimate businesses. This is way too cynical. There are plenty of honest careers today. Name one. I'll wait. And while you're thinking, remember that honest and profitable under the current system might be mutually exclusive categories. If this is all true, how did society function at all? The same way it functions now, Sarah. The criminals provide just enough actual service to keep their scam running. The blacksmith really did make horseshoes between manufacturing murder weapons. The monks really did copy books between forging documents. The system worked because the corruption was systematic, not random. So what's the alternative? Anarchism? Revolution? Going off-grid? Good question. Maybe the answer isn't finding the right system, but recognizing that all systems eventually become tools for the people smart enough to game them. Maybe the real career advice is, learn to see the game, understand the rules, and decide consciously whether you want to play, cheat, or flip the board. This was hilarious but also terrifying. How much of this actually happened? All of it, none of it, or exactly as much as you're willing to believe? The beauty of historical fiction is that it's usually more honest than historical fact. What am I supposed to tell kids who ask about career choices now? Tell them the truth. Tell them every career is a choice about which compromises you're willing to make, which systems you're willing to support, and which version of yourself you're willing to become. Then teach them to make those choices consciously instead of accidentally. And on that note, thank you for spending time watching me destroy your faith in human institutions while wearing a silly costume. Remember, the past is just the present with different technology, and the future is just the present with different excuses. Keep questioning everything, trust nothing completely, and always remember that the most dangerous criminals are the ones who convince you they're legitimate. This has been Medieval Career Day. Class dismissed. Now get out there and choose your own adventure in organized crime. Pursue your professional goals in the modern economy.